Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today I have another concept in Galaxy of Heroes that is not going to be as complicated as last week with defense. I hope you all enjoyed that. Today I want to be talking about landing debuffs, or specifically Tenacity versus Potency. And I believe that most of the community has a pretty firm grasp on how this works, but I think that there is some discrepancies or maybe some misconceptions on how specifically this actually works or how these checks actually work. So in today's video, I wanted to explain and kind of give a more detailed description and explanation on how debuffs are actually applied in this game. So to get things started, I wanted to first talk about the different types of debuffs. Those are resistible debuffs, unresistible debuffs, and characters that are immune to certain debuffs. So a resistible debuff, and in this case I'm going to use an example here with a character, Old Ben. Old Ben on his Mind Tricks ability, all of those debuffs there are resistible. So the ability block, offense down, and the turn meter removal will all go through the Potency versus Tenacity check. If we were to go to an unresistible debuff, that would be like Kylo Ren on Mask Special, the Halt, which is his 2-turn stun. That ability cannot be resisted. So it does not matter how high of tenacity you have or how high your potency is. You are guaranteed to land that debuff 100% of the time if the character is not immune to that debuff. Which, an example of being immune is Padme Amidala. In her unique, Always a Choice, Padme is immune to fear. So it does not matter how high your potency is, how low her tenacity is, does not matter. She cannot be feared. So Darth Revan, Malak, all the Sith Empire, they cannot land fear on Padme. So that is kind of just a quick thing explaining these types of debuffs and how they can be applied. What I'm going to be following up with the Potency versus Tenacity, this is going to be for resistible debuffs. So now that we know the different types of debuffs, let's take a look with resistible debuffs. There's basically 3 steps that you have to go through in order to land a debuff. So the first thing is you need to be able to see if your debuff can land. Most characters, I would say within the last 2 to 3 years, there haven't been too many characters that have abilities with percent chances to inflict an ability. But however, the older characters, more from the launch of the game, have this, and this is kind of more of a dated concept. But one of the characters that is used a lot in a lot of mid to end game lineups is Old Ben. He has an ability that has a percent chance to land. So if we're looking at his Mind Tricks ability, the ability block and offense down, those all have a 100% chance to land. So when you go to do that ability, they will land. The turn meter removal, however, is an 80% chance. So in order to land that turn meter removal, you first need to go through that 80% chance check right there. So 80% of the time you're going to land it, 20% of the time you are not going to land it. And if you do not land it, it stops right there. You don't go through the Potency versus Tenacity. That is just how it is, and that is part of the RNG with his kits. So we went through that first ability check, and in this imaginary example, we passed that percent chance to land the debuff. So now we go on to the Tenacity versus Potency check. So the mathematical formula for this is 1 minus, in parentheses, tenacity minus potency. That is going to be your chance to land the debuff. So let's just use an example here, Enfys Nest. So one of the big complaints that I hear is, oh, my nest has 150% tenacity. How did they land this debuff on me? They only had 80% potency. So let's go ahead and we're going to plug these numbers into the formula. So it's 1 minus the tenacity, which is 1.5, minus 80, which is 0.8. So that leaves us with 0.7. So that'll be 1 minus 0.7, which will give us 0.3. So basically, with all that tenacity, that character is left with a 30% chance to land that debuff. So after that potency tenacity check, there's left with a 30% chance. That character 30% of the time, they will land that debuff. 70% of the time, they will resist it. So naturally, the higher the tenacity you have, the more likely you are to resist a debuff. And if we are looking at this formula here, if we want the 100% chance to resist all resistible debuffs, you are going to want to have 100% more tenacity than the opposing character has potency. Now, finally, we did our ability percent chance, we did our tenacity versus potency. Now, all we have left is the game's natural RNG. So, let it just say that you passed the potency versus tenacity check. You are going against this high tenacious nest, and we're going to use those same numbers from the past formula. You fell into that 30% chance, and you are good to land this debuff. Well, the game thou has a natural 15% chance. Now, this 15% chance cannot be modded for. This is just base RNG, and it is what it is. You could have 1 million potency, and they could have negative 1 million tenacity. It does not matter. There's a 15% chance to resist said debuff, and that is just part of the game's natural RNG. Now, if you passed the tenacity check, if you were trying to resist a debuff, that 15% chance is not taken into account. That's just you resisted it. But if you are going to land the debuff, you have that additionally, and there's nothing you can do about that. Now, last but not least, there are certain buffs that boost and decrease your tenacity. Tenacity up, what that does is it gives you plus 9999999% tenacity. So basically you get infinite tenacity, and you basically can resist all resistible debuffs. Now, tenacity down does the opposite. It gives you minus 99999% tenacity, and basically all that there is left is the natural 15% chance. Now, I'm sure we've all been in that situation in Grand Arena. We're in territory battles, and there's tenacity down, and your debuffs are not landing. And you're thinking, wow, how are these not landing? There's tenacity down, my potency is decently high, why isn't this going through? That is the base 15% chance that the game is putting out, and that is just the way that it is. So last but not least, I'm going to use a real-world example here. I pulled this from one of my recent territory battles. I was running CLS with Old Ben instead of Chupio in, I believe it was like phase 1 of Lightside GOTB. And here in this phase, I used Old Ben and did his mind trick. So I pause it here on the screen so you can see all the debuffs that are being applied. Looks like, and we can walk through these steps of what we did, what I've just previously explained, to see, kind of the process of how these debuffs are being applied. So we're looking at the B1s, there's the gunner, there's the B2s, and the command battle droid. It's looking like pretty much all these debuffs landed. I do have fairly high potency on my Old Ben, but if we're looking at the gunner there, you can see 3 resists. So he had 3 debuffs that he could apply. That was the ability block, offense down, and the turn meter removal, and all of them were resisted. So basically, all those checks that we went through, it passed the percent chance to apply, but however, it failed the tenacity versus potency check, whereas for all the rest of the characters, they passed here. So I encourage you guys, if you're ever interested to see, how high do you need your potency or tenacity to go, I encourage you to go check in Squad Arena or go into some of these galactic challenges and maybe play the game in 1x and just focus on the status effects that are popping up and the resists and all that, and you can see, your potency and tenacity at work. All right, that is all that I have for you guys today. I hope that this explanation here will help you guys better understand maybe how to mod your characters. If your Enfys Nest was getting debuffed too easily, maybe you need to bump up that tenacity, or maybe you weren't landing debuffs as effectively and you need to bump up your potency, or maybe you just wanted to better understand why debuffs weren't landing. I hope that I could have had that effect today. Again, feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions, and my Discord is in the description. Appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.